So I thought every place was like America. Probably should have known better. It was like major culture shock to see poor people face to face. Now, people will say, "Oh, we have poor people in America, blah, 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 blah." I say, bull crap. Could you live on $2 a day? Lots of Filipinos are trying to do that, and they have families and everything else. I had some people, quote, poor friends back in Pennsylvania. They lived in a trailer and were on welfare. But they had a microwave oven. They had a color TV. They had a flush toilet. Those things are luxuries here in the Philippines for most people. Oh my. It was culture shock, real culture shock. I remember I stayed overnight in my... Poor people in America are not poor from a world standard. They might be poor by an American standard. I'm so happy I sold my house and got out from under my mortgage back in Pennsylvania. I'm out of debt now. I was never going to be out of debt back in Pennsylvania. I couldn't pay off my mortgage. That's what I was going to recommend to somebody who might consider trying to serve God in a foreign country or live your Christian life in a foreign country. Go to a poor place. You don't have to go all the way around the other side of the planet like me. You can go to South America or someplace closer. But you could sell your house even at a loss and go build a little cabin up in the woods and be out of debt, and then work on hearing from the Lord where He wants you to go. I'm sure it's not a rich place. I don't think. Anyway, I remember I was staying at night, with my... So, I'm living pretty good here now. I have a nice house and have some really nice friends, and I'm reaching out to other people in poor places and things. What's the word they call it? The remote places here, where they don't have electricity. No electricity. Can you imagine living without electricity? Yeah. So, like Baguio, electricity's here. But I did help one preacher here. And I'll tell you this story. This is sad. He was living in a house that somebody had given him, and he had no electricity, even though his house was built right beside the electric line. Because I can't remember, I have to think about the price, but he couldn't come up with the official paperwork to have it turned on. I think it was like $400 to have the permit to have the electricity turned on. To a Filipino, that's an outrageous amount of money. To me, that's nothing. So I paid the money to get him his electricity turned on, and I went over there and turned a light on myself to make sure it was turned on. Because the house, when it was built, had the electric wiring and the lights and stuff installed, but there was never any electricity hooked up to it all the years he'd lived there. He couldn't afford to pay the price to get it turned on. Well, anyway, what was I thinking about? Just the quality of the difference, the just horrible difference from my perspective. And people in America don't understand this, don't believe this. They think I thought everybody in the world was like America. Well, no, it's terrible. And how can we as Christians let our brethren live in destitute circumstances like this? Why are the Christians in America building fancier and fancier buildings to have their weekly services in, while there's poor people in the world who can't make ends meet and are suffering and don't even have electricity, etc., etc.? Anyway, that was a life-changing experience for me. After my first trip to the Philippines, I said out loud to anyone else who would hear it, I will never give another dime to a building fund in America. And the longer I lived, the more fully persuaded that that was the right thing to say. The early church met in homes. They didn't have cathedrals. They didn't have mega churches and all that stuff. They weren't trying to build a bigger parking lot and this and that. Speaking of parking lots, that was a major change here. In my mind, I was still thinking like an American. I had the front, maybe third of my lot here, I had it designed to be like a parking lot. Now it's not, because the Philippines don't have cars. Very few of them have cars. They ride public transportation, which they call a jeepney here. It's a peculiar vehicle. They make them here in the Philippines. You can load about 30 people in the back of it, I think. I don't know. I can't fit in one really, so I don't try to get in there. But there's no need for a parking lot here. I have a driveway, and occasionally one or two vehicles is in there. That's it. The Filipinos don't have cars, so you don't need a parking lot. But I wasn't thinking that way, you know. It's hard to break out of our American culture. What else can I tell you? Anyway, I wasn't planning on coming here to live, though. I wasn't planning on that. But about 13 years ago, not 14 when I came here the first time, maybe 12 years ago, more, yeah. Because I'd only been married a short time, and I was in the States, and I got really sick. And I thought I was dying. I wasn't dying, but I got so sick I thought I was dying. And when I was laying on the floor praying that one of those days, crying out to God, He told me that I was going to come live here in the Philippines. The hardest part was convincing my wife to come back, because she didn't want to come back. But I finally convinced, after I retired. I retired like 4 years ago. You know, and then we came back here. I immigrated here to live. She didn't want to come back, and I can understand that. But she shouldn't complain, or because we have a nice house and we're not hurting for anything. I think we're doing all right. I think she would agree with that now, but at that time she couldn't conceive. You leave a destitute life and you go to a ridiculously wealthy life. It's hard to go back the other direction. For example, my wife was employed by the Department of Public Works and Highways here in the Philippines. She was a secretary. And, well, she didn't make much. Nobody here makes much. But when she got back to the States, she got a job as at a department store. I'm trying to think what the official designation of her job was. Anyway, she was just putting the clothes up and down, taking the clothes up and down and stuff. Like I don't know if you call that a sales lady or what it was. It was a minimum wage job. Okay, that's all. So if you convert the dollars to pesos, she started immediately making more money than the regional director of the Department of Public Works and Highways here in the Philippines. They have doctors. I've been in the hospital here 3 times, and I don't like hospitals. I don't want to go back to hospitals. I'm glad they have hospitals here. And they have good doctors here. I think they're just as good, if not better, than the doctors in America, because they're not being hamstrung and controlled by the insurance companies and the drug companies. They can prescribe for you whatever they think's best, not what the company says is best. And they can talk to you as long as they want to. They're not limited to a 15-minute in and out the door thing either. I can't remember where I'm at in these stories that I'm telling. Quickly, I don't remember if I told you the story about the hole I had in my leg when I first came here. I had a little tiny